Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's reflection. As you can see, we have a new location. We have a nice little roaring fire going because if you look out behind us, it is snowing, and we are currently getting dumped on pretty well here in Spokane. I bring that up just because this is the sort of winter that'll be happening. It feels like a divisive one where those who follow science are going to be like, we should be worried, we shouldn't be getting dumped on and having ice tornadoes. And then those who are like, nope, everything's normal again because we had the worst winter on record in Chicago. Like, parts of hell actually froze over in, like, Chicago, you know? Yeah. Anyways, this week we talked about Marxism, or we read Marx. We talked about hegemony with Gramsci. Yeah, I wanted to say Gramercy, but that's not his name, Gramsci. And then we talked about Zizek and the devil and commodity fetishism. I really wanted to focus on Zizek's idea of the cynical versus the like cynical with a K. Those were the two distinctions, like cynicism and then cynicism with a K, whereas like the real cynicism can't actually take part within the circle because they are within that like system criticizing it. So like when, and I brought this up in class, like the example of when we, and I say that meaning you as a real professor and me as one who's trying to pretend to be a professor, like when we talk about how we would love to change the system and are trying to get radical, yet we teach classes with the same structure of here's your rubric, here's a paper, here's a project, that sort of a thing, how we can never actually question the system while we're within it. And I think that he's on to something there, that like even our most pointed critiques while participating in the system are just reiterating the system in some way, shape, or form, if that makes sense, and how it takes a truly alienated perspective of it to understand all of its flaws. So I guess an analogy, and I wanted to bring it up in class, but I feel like it would have gotten us sidetracked, would be like if aliens ever truly landed, everything that we do would be foreign to them. And like our idea of capitalism, they'd be like, what is this ridiculousness? And they'd be able to really quickly point out all of the flaws that we inherently don't see because it would be a completely foreign system. I really liked that idea because I think like, and we again hit on it in class, but we didn't get to fully discuss it. And I don't know if it was the most apt analogy, but the idea that like communists were able to see flaws in capitalist societies, and vice versa, like we were able to see flaws within communism because we were outside of the system. But then again, as you brought up, like our perspective is even predicated on our own understanding of that system based on a competing system. And I think that that's something that we will never actually get to fully grapple with, because down to some sort of level, there is a differentiation between us and others within a society and a sub-society, I guess, based on our own perceptions from the society we were raised in, if that makes any sense, that are always going to keep us from actually being fully alienated from anything in this world, because it is of this world. For us to be alienated to fully critique anything, it feels like we would have to be like really, really aliens, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if that really leads into my next part of I guess it kind of does, because when we were talking about future systems having to be understood in past system context, I think that this kind of relates, and it becomes interesting and problematic because as I discussed, and I think others were trying to, is everything, even the new words we come up with, things like that for new systems, have to be thought of in old terms. And I think that that is true, and it's problematic for the new systems because there will be inherent flaws because they will be coming from an already inherently flawed system, I guess. And that's a philosophical discussion you'd have to get into. It feels like every system is flawed where humans are involved, because we're humans and we suck. And also, just throwing this out there, I'm going to switch to this because I think we touched on it. I want to call the greed and the drive for more now the VUCA SALT principle from now on, because that's all I could think about when Alex was talking about that's where capitalism and even Stalin and those others went wrong, was their greed. Maybe Stalin didn't want the material greed that we capitalists want, but he wanted the power. He had that greed for power, and I am nowhere near enough of a communist historian or Lenin scholar to say whether or not Lenin was both like greedy in a monetary sense and a power sense. I think it's clear to see that he was greedy in a power sense because he wanted to be totalitarian, and that comes down to Ayn Rand right there, that green one, The Origins of Totalitarianism. I'm reading that, and that's really influencing me right now. But I think that those were interesting. To get back to my original point, I think that the idea that past systems influence how we understand new systems when it came to the use of the devil in commodity to make it understandable, and how one group is using it as a form of like leveling the playing field, like keeping the silver miners. I can't remember his exact phrase, but how it's keeping competition from ruining everything, and then the other one is acting at it's keeping communism in check in the case with the silver miners, and it is also being a scapegoat. It's not being a scapegoat, but the devil and commodity and capitalism are being looked at in a harsher lens by the others who went from farmers to slaves rather quickly. I don't know where else to go. Looking forward, I'm just interested to see where we go from here and how we keep connecting, because it feels like everything is sort of building on itself and looking at contextuality and the overall reliance on context for theory, and like the societal construction that is theory itself. I think that that's like an underlying theme of the class, and at least those are the connections I'm making, and correct me if I'm wrong. And we're actually going to leave it there. So have a good one, and hopefully you're not getting snowed on, and if you are, go make snowballs and snow angels and have a good weekend.